are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, welcome to our Formlabs webinar. What we're going to do today is talk you through how to get the most out of Formlab Black, our top-end software. If you go to flb.footballformlabs.com in any web browser and then enter your login details, the first page you'll see is our daily reports page. Our daily reports is a landing web kind of page where you can see all of the editorial that we've put up for the day's matches that are going on. This can vary from some strong stats that we like to our daily recommendations, which we keep a running track record of our profit and loss, to other things like player information, significant players like we're missing, or a long-term market below. We're going to come back to daily reports in a little bit, but I'll just guide you through the tabs on the top. So you can see what's going on. The first tab is Game Notes. Game Notes lets you access on a league or a market a strong bet in every game. So this is an automated service which will look at the past history of the two teams involved, and it'll pick out the strongest market possible. So if we look at Chelsea-Liverpool for tonight's game, we can see that the auto-generated game note for that game is revolved around the match outcome market, and we've got a stat for match outcome for Chelsea for their full-time and half-time games, and then an over-goal stat for Liverpool. If we scroll down, there'll be a lot of different ones. Strong one that jumps out here is that Southampton-Swansea. Swansea have had over 2.5 goals in 10 of their last 12 away matches. Southampton have had in 8 of their last 10. A quick way to get an idea of the match before we see it. You can also do it by market. So choose a different market. If we go first half outcome, there's going to be game notes which are just about the first half, and they are in time ascending order. So if we scroll down here, we can see that there is a trend for a first half in Japan tomorrow morning. Moving across match data. Match data is a very good hub, so you can get an idea of what the game's going to be like. It's designed that we have on the left side form tables, and we have some key indicators. We have the game note we've just talked about, and some top 3 match indicators. The form tables are quite interesting, so I'm going to spend a little more time going over those. Anything in Formlab Black that has the eye icon is a tooltip, so if you hover over that, it'll give you a bit of an idea about what that table or what that section of the page does. The default table is the standard league table. We're 4 games in now for the Prem, so it's starting to take a little bit of shape, and actually looks very similar to how most people might expect it to be at the end of the season. On the drop down here, you can see a lot more tables. Ones that I like to look at first of all, let's go for match goals. What this is the last 20 all home or away games and what's happened in those games for those teams. So it's currently selected all. Obviously all is home and away. We can see here that Liverpool and Chelsea are both very high up on the plus 2.5 ranking, which is the standard default, that they've had 13 of their last 20 home matches. All matches have had over 2.5 goals. Only 3 teams have had more, and you might be a little bit surprised to see a team like Stoke up there. Not surprised at all to see Man City up there. If we look at the other end of the table, no one is going to be surprised that West Brom's at the bottom of that with just 5 of the last 20. Again, you can toggle between home and away. We see Chelsea here actually higher for home, but again, Man City are a long way in front of everyone else. And if we go to away, Liverpool is more in the middle with 11 of their last 20. What we can see here, this is key indicators versus opposition type. Both of these teams are currently top 6 teams. They probably will finish there at the end of the season as well. So what we're looking at here, we've got home and away filter. So this is the last 10 matches against the opposition type. So that would be all 20 teams in the league. For promoted teams, we use a modelled kind of algorithm for how other promoted teams have done. But what we can see here is how they rank within those 20 for the last 10 games against the opposition type we're playing. So for this, they're both playing against top 6 teams. We can see here they're both very lowly ranked for fail to score. So that means that they usually do score because they fail rarely. So Chelsea have scored in 9 of their last 10 against top 6 teams at home, and Liverpool have scored in 8 of 10 of their last 8 of the last 10 at home against away against top 6 teams. You can toggle that again for home and all, and then we can just do versus all teams. We can see here that again 13 out of 20 ranks them joint second for the home teams, which is Chelsea, what we looked at before. Scrolling down on the left side, you can see their ranking for match goals and what this is to the last 20 where they've ranked on this table. So they're 4th and 5th at the moment, which you can see here. But what we can see here is that Liverpool have increased from a team that maybe didn't have so many over goals games before to a team now that is pretty solid up here. Top 3 match indicators are strong things in the game that the number in the brackets is the number of deviations that they are away from the mean in the league for that market. We're on home and away, so over 3.5 goals versus all for both teams is a strong deviation from a standard in the league. What we're going to move next to is pre-match query. Pre-match query is a way you can query against any of the leagues in Formlabs Black for any past pre-match filter we're going to put on. In Formlabs we have over 50 leagues, and in many of the countries that we cover we have more than one division, including England, which we go down to the 5th tier in the conference. Very easy to navigate around, but for this game we're going to stay on Chelsea and Liverpool. There's a lot of inputs you can put in here. So the first one is period, second one is position, so that's about the team that you're looking at straight away. So in the top it's the home team, the bottom it's the away team. Opposition again is the opposition, so this is Liverpool and this is Chelsea. Form, how they've done in the last X number of games or when they've been on a similar streak, and the same for the opposition as well. And then some information on the right side about the clubs. Firstly, about the manager, it's interesting that Klopp's now been in charge for 34 matches and been there for over pretty much a year and a couple of weeks. Just some form below the current streak they're on. So in their home and away games relatively. So the standard query that we usually do is just looking at from the seasons 15 to 16, so last season to this team, this season, home and away. If we click generate query, it's going to be the first output that we're going to show on our output query side. And what we've got here on the two parallel columns next to each other, we've got the home results on the left, so Chelsea's home results, and the away team's away results on the right. And then a summary box at the top. You can see that Chelsea have won 7 of their last 21 home matches, which is a terrible record, obviously, for a team that have been as strong as they have in recent years. But as we know, they look a lot different under Conte than they did under Mourinho last season. And on the right side, we can see Liverpool's record away since the start of last season. That Liverpool, interestingly, have won more away games since the start of last season than Chelsea have won home games. We've got a summary of the full-time results, what that would be in odds. So a third would be is converted to 3.00, and what your profitability would have been backing the 1x2 results at average odds at the start of the game. We can see here that it's actually slightly profitable to back Liverpool. A lot of the time these odds, because they are average odds, you do a lot better if you chose the best odds on one of our partners like Odds Checker. But it's very good to illustrate what you do against average odds. We see here that obviously with Chelsea's terrible record, it would have been a really bad betting strategy to back them to a unit stake at home for the whole of last season and the start of this season. On the summary, we also have tabs for match goals, team goals, half-time, full-time, handicaps, corners and bookings. If we go to match goals here, we've just got a summary of what's happened in those games. First of all is the over 1.5 market. We can see that only 2 of Chelsea's last 21 have had under 1.5, and only 4 of Liverpool's last 22 on the road have had under 1.5 goals. Not going to get a great price on over 1.5 today, so no one's particularly interested in that. But when we go up the scale, we can see that Chelsea had a lot of over 2.5 goals, which you could see before from match data. But equally, the number of over 3.5 goals is very strong as well. Almost half of those games having over 3.5. Both teams have scored in 15 of their 21, which is a lot higher than the league average. And for Liverpool, we can see that it's 11 out of 20. Now, this is a very basic query on just home and away games since the start of last season, and if we wanted to change it up a bit, we could say, okay, for Liverpool, we're going to look at their current manager spell in all games against top 6 opposition teams like Chelsea. And for Chelsea, we don't really want to query just on Conte at the moment, but we want to see how they've done over the last 5 seasons. If this Liverpool team are as good as people are saying, how have Chelsea done hosting teams that have... We're going to, rather than look at current position, so the games where they were against teams that are currently in the top 6, we're going to look at the finishing position, and we're just going to look at home. So this is going to be 2 completely different queries for the home and the away team. Pull this up here. again, we can see that Chelsea's home record again in those games hosting the top 6 teams, which last season was the only time they hadn't finished in the top 6. So we've got 6 games last season. You see that they started very well by beating Arsenal, but after that failed to beat any of the other top 6, conceding in each of the matches. Again, toggling to over 2.5 goals. Similar games to this. Chelsea hosting a team in the top 6 at the end of the finished in the top 6 where we'd expect Liverpool to finish. You can see that 58% of those games have had over 2.5 goals. On the right side, what we've got here is Liverpool's record, home and away, against teams in the top 6 at the time they played them. Because Klopp joined mid-season, all of those teams were actually established in the top 6 at the time, and what we have here is the position they were when they played them and the position they actually finished up in. Liverpool's record there of 1-3, drawn 2, lost 2 is pretty impressive when you think that they didn't finish in the top 6 themselves. They finished 8th, as we can see here. Some of those games are interesting with a lot of goals in, but what we're looking at there, it seems that Liverpool are strong in games where they have to turn up for. So maybe their lack of their low performance last year was because they lost out in lesser games where they were expected to win. If we close all of our queries now, which will be taken back to the pre-match query page, we also have in-play query. In-play, a bit like Ronsil, does what it says on the tin. We can query the same as we could do for pre-match for all the past games in our database, but for this time we can choose any situation during the match. You see on the left we've got match period. We can also carry across any pre-match filters we might have. So if we're only interested in these Chelsea versus top 6 games, then we went to in-play query. You can see here we're going to get versus finishing top 6. We want to take the Liverpool one off. For Liverpool, we're just going to look at the current manager. Let's start for 30 minutes. So if we put in 30 here, it's going to pre-select that for the away team as well. We're going to go for home matches for Chelsea and all matches for Liverpool, and we're going to go when the score was 1-0. So this is when the home team were leading 1-0, or in Liverpool's case, when they were losing 1-0 after 30 minutes in any game. If we click Generate Query, we're obviously going to get a smaller sample than we would have done had we queried at the start of the match, but we can see here that actually Chelsea's record when 1-0 up is not particularly impressive. They've only won 1 of their last 4 in similar matches, hosting teams that finished in the top 6. Liverpool, they've lost all of their last 4 when they've been trailing by 1-0 at half-time. To get bigger sample sizes in Formlabs, one of the queries you can do is, rather than look at the teams in question here, we can look at all teams. So if we choose seasons 11 to 12 to 16, 17, and we chose all teams home, and we're going to say that both of these teams are going to finish in the top 6. So if we toggle for here, finish in position top 6, I'm just going to close that down. So this is going to be all of the games between top 6 finishers over the last 5 seasons. And we click Generate Query. We have 150 matches that match this criteria, and what we can see here is that the home team have won 47% of the matches. Now, is that important? Is that significant? Well, we can look at every match. So if we click here, the reset button, and then we're going to generate a query. This is going to be every match played in the Premier League over the last 5 seasons. Now we have 1,940 matches. We can see here that the home team has won 44% of the games in those matches. So perhaps there is a slight improvement in the home team's record when it's 2 very good teams playing against each other. That's what it looks like to look at. And when we look at the odds below, we can see that it's actually profitable to back the home team in those games, which is something that wouldn't immediately jump out. Like, as we said before, this is for all games that we'd expect these to be negative on average odds because of the overround that bookmakers got into their markets. So, you know, maybe the bookmakers give the away team too much credit in these games. Very general strategy, but something that there immediately jumps out to me. Maybe I want to go and look at that more. Maybe good teams, when they're playing good teams, have a better record than they're expected to do. If we look at all of the matches again, so we're at that in these 2,000 matches, when we look at the over/under goals on the match goals tab of the summary, we can see that 52% of the matches have had over 2.5 goals. That's got an odds conversion of 1.91. And we go to the bigger games, we get over 2.5 goals. And actually, very interestingly, more of these games have more goals in them. A lot of people would think that in such a big game, always going to be on Sky, top 6 finishes against each other, maybe they'd be a lot tighter than you'd have thought. But actually, what it looks like, we have more goals in those games, 59% having overs. 60% of the games have seen both teams score, and that's compared to just 52% of the matches for every match, which is surprising to me. Another in-play query we can do is we can look at, again, we can use the all-team query coming on here, and we can say, okay, if we are trailing by one goal, we're trailing by one goal in the 80th minute. Any home team over the last 5 years, how's that team done? Generate query, there have been 365 instances where the home team have been trailing by one with 10 minutes to go, and they've won 3 of those matches. Anyone over those? Watford last season against Villa. What else have we got? Southampton last season against Liverpool, and a long way down until we find QPR against Liverpool. So Liverpool involved in 2 of those, which is could be interesting for tonight if we get to a point where they're leading by 1 after 85 minutes. We can see here that the away team have won 81% of those games, so it's quite a good reference point just to look at those matches and see whatever the odds were at the time, how have they done in those games. On the column that I like to look at most is the match goals. So this is under the MG heading. This shows that 39% of matches where the home team have been trailing by 1 at 80 minutes, where they're going to be pushing for an equaliser, 39% have had another match goal. But when we look at the scored next and conceded next, it's not actually that big a disparity between the two. So what I would think there from a betting perspective is that the market's very much going to favour the home team getting that equaliser rather than the away team extending their lead, because they don't necessarily need the goal. But the distribution of goals suggests that possibly teams get more on the counter-attack than we might expect otherwise. Lots and lots of data in pre-match query and in-play query. We use it to write most of our editorial. Most of our reports will refer to what we've queried, particularly in pre-match query, and it's a great database to form your own strategies from. In Formula Black, we also offer players. Players is a proprietary tool where, rather than query how teams have done, we can query how individual players or combination of players or even formations have done over the past. It's quite an interesting match tonight because obviously we have the return of David Luiz for Liverpool. I've got a pre-query set in here, so what you can see is that we have selected Chelsea on the top right. We selected a period 11 to 12 to 16 to 17. We've included former players, and what we're looking at here is all of their matches against all opposition when they've played at least 3 games. So what we're going to get on the right side, we can generate this query again. This is going to give us all of the players that have played 3 matches for Chelsea any time in the last 5 seasons. So we're going to have all the players like Drogba and Lampard on here. And one of the things we can look at is how Chelsea have done when they have been missing Terry, who's absent tonight. So if we just select Terry here, what we can see is that Terry has to include a match in the sample. What we are saying here, you have to start the match and you have to play at least 60 minutes. So you have an important effect on the game. We're saying that Terry's started and played 60 minutes in 137 of Chelsea's 194 games over the past 5 seasons and a few games this year. If we click on his name here, what we're going to get a pop-up. The pop-up shows on the left the games when Terry has played, and on the right the games that he's been absent. Very simple query, but something you can't do on other software. You can't quickly generate how Chelsea do when Terry starts compared to when he doesn't start. On the left side, he started all the games this season. Chelsea have got 10 points in those games. We look above to the summary. You can see that Chelsea have won 58% of the matches that Terry started over the last 5 seasons. On the right side, we've got a big sample size because Terry's been in and out of the team for a long period. We've got 57 matches where he hasn't played, and their win percentage drops to 47% when he hasn't played. The P&L is actually negative for in both scenarios when he hasn't played, but the win percentage there is a clear drop when Terry's been absent for Chelsea. The PPG on the left side is 1.98, and that drops to a PPG of 1.7 on the right side. Again, we've got a summary here where we can see what's happened in those games more specifically. And in the goals market, Terry actually has a less significant effect, it seems. So we see that over the last 5 years, Chelsea have had over 2.5 goals in 56% of their games, and that increases slightly to 58% in the games that he's been absent in, but not a huge shift. if we don't want to query individual players, we could query a combination of players. And today with David Luiz coming back and with the teams confirmed that he is starting with Gary Cahill, we click Generate Query again. And what we're going to get here is 2 lines of data of how the team have done when that pair meet the criteria that we've looked for above, which is they've started the match and played 60 minutes. So there were 29 games in Luiz's last spell where they started the match together. And the immediate thing that jumps out to me is like, wow, look at this record they've got here. They won, what is that, 7 of their final 8 games, and 7 of their final 8 games the pair played together. Their win percentage was 66% compared to 52% when they didn't play. And if we click on the match goals tab, we can see that actually a huge 62% of the games have had over 2.5 goals when both of these have played. Now, most people are going to say this is exactly what I was expecting to happen. Luiz comes back, and I didn't know about the win expectancy improving, but I expected there would be a lot more goals in those games. You can see here they've only failed to score in 3 of the 29 games they've played in, but they've kept only 11 clean sheets. To me, it's screaming out goals, especially with the perception we've got of these two at the back together. On the right side, we can see when we're not going to count in this games when Luiz wasn't at the club, because that wouldn't be fair on this query. So we're only going to count games when he was at the club, when they could have chosen to play Luiz and Cahill as a partnership. In 65 of the matches, they didn't do that. And when they didn't do that, so when either or both missed out, they had over 2.5 goals in just 52% of their matches compared to the 62% of the matches they did play. If we're looking at on if we want to have a look on Liverpool's thing, because just that Firmino isn't playing. So what we've got here, if we query under current manager, and we've no interest in former leagues or former players now. So we're just going to have the current Liverpool squad up on the left side. Again, they have to have played at least 3 games and played at least 60 minutes. If we click on the player summary, what you've got here is a quick screenshot of how a lot of data about the players in the squad, including just some standard stuff about the position and the shirt number of the player, how long it's been since they haven't played. And what we look here is there's not really anyone in the squad that has been out for too long a time other than Sacco after his ban. A lot of their players have either played in the last game or very recently. Again, by position. So if we do it here, we've got their attackers at the top. On the start, this number of the games they started under Klopp. So of all the players, Mignolet started the most times on the Klopp. Some might argue that maybe he shouldn't have started so many games. And we can see down here, we go down as far as someone like Sturridge, who's only started 10 games under Klopp. We can see who's the most regular player to get subbed off. Lallana's been subbed off in 15 of his 25 starts. But the average time that he's been subbed off is the 81st minute. Again, anyone that's watched Liverpool play will know that Lallana is a perfect Klopp player. Will come up running around the pitch like a madman from the start, and no surprise that he gets tired by the end of it. Goals, which a lot of people are going to be interested in for betting markets today. We can see that the player with the most goals for Liverpool over the last since Klopp took over is Firmino, but he is not starting tonight. Which is going to have a huge effect on them. Coutinho has the second most goals. Some of the other things you can look at across is the number of games scored when included, a number of times they've scored first in the match. Firmino is the only player that scored first in the match more than twice. GSL is the number of games since they scored the final goal of the game, which could be good for any kind of like spread betting markets. Number of games where they've scored or having scored in the previous game. Some players are very streaky, like this weekend, expecting that to happen to Lukaku. Possibly that he has a higher chance of scoring this week than last week because he was in such good form last week. Yellow cards can be quite interesting for any spread betting players. We can see here that Chan and Milner have started a similar amount of games, 22 and 23 under Klopp respectively, and they both picked up 7 yellow cards, and Milner's had a red card as well. If we just quickly look at Firmino, they're playing away. So let's narrow down that query a little bit. So this is all of the games away under Klopp, or it's meant to be. And again, so he has started 14 of the 18 away games under Klopp. So perhaps he's even more important when they're on the road. we click on his name, it's going to give us a pop-up. This is how Liverpool have done when he has played on the road. We can see here they've got a fantastic away record when Firmino starts on the road. 8 wins in 14. When he hasn't played, 2 points out of 4 games. A loss at home to Swansea at the end of last season, a draw, at Swansea, a draw at West Brom, loss at Southampton, and a 0-0 at Spurs. Not particularly impressive results there. So it's a big worry for Liverpool fans that Firmino's not playing today. Close this down. Next tab is Live Logic. Live Logic is a great in-play tool. You can click on, you can customize at the top. So let's just go back to that. You can customize on leagues or alerts at the top. This is all the games that are currently in play that we cover in Formula Black. You can see here that we've got pretty much a full fixture list in Ligue 2 in France tonight, the same in Holland, and then we've got a smattering of other games around. If we look at the bottom one, which is Turkey, so the top division in Turkey, we can see that Bursaspor, an established Turkish team, playing against another good team, Kayserispor. It's 1-0 after 65 minutes, and the alert that's just flashed up is Bursaspor have drawn just 6 of their last 20 matches. Kayserispor have won none of their last 7 away matches. That's a quick way of looking at a game and a reason to have a bet. We see that it's just flashed up here in the Icelandic game. 85 minutes. We get an alert every 5 minutes whenever a goal is scored across every game that we cover, with the stats for both teams in those games. Creates a huge amount of potential bets on a weekend, and you can customize your alerts as well to select just the interesting things you want. If we go back to Live Logic now, just gonna have a look at see if we've got any other interesting bets around. Just waiting for that to load up. One other thing we can go back to while we wait for that is the daily reports. Our daily reports are our landing page, as I said, for all of the editorial that we put up. So here we go to Live Logic. If you scroll down to the bottom, an interesting game that we've got going on at the moment is the Arabro game in Sweden. So it's 3-2 after 72 minutes. Now, what will happen in those games when you're not going to get too much empirical evidence of teams having 5 goals in a game by 70 minutes on an individual team basis, what you're going to get is a stat that is indicative of what's happened in similar matches between similar opposition types. So here we've got a game where a top 6 home team is hosting a bottom 6 away team. In Sweden, we've got 3 games that have just kicked, 3 more games here in the second division in Sweden that have just flashed up. There's been a goal in 76% of the games between top 6 teams at home and bottom 6 teams at home, when there have been 5 goals in the game. Now, if we were to look at the market for that, we could see that the price on over 5.5 goals is going to be a lot shorter than what a lot longer than what we expect it to be. So you can get currently 1.75 on there being another goal in the game. We've got the top all team stats to support it, but the stat below also supports it. So that Sundsvall have lost by 2 or more goals in 4 of their last 5 away matches when they've been in a situation like this, and that's trailing by 1 at 70 minutes. So we're looking now 1.7 for another goal in the game. Looks like a very strong bet that we could have in play right now. Going back to the daily reports, the most popular part of all of our software are our daily report recommendations, which have produced a constant profit since we launched this software over 5 years ago. Last year, we made a 6.3% ROI on 287 tips across all of the big leagues. We cover internationals and Champions League for our editorial, but not for our recommendations as well. You can see here, you can navigate on the left side, and what you have, we go all the way to Monday. We've got a recommendation in the Spanish game on Monday as well. If we go to tomorrow, we're going to have a lot of data here. We've got 2 strong bets we fancy tomorrow, Bordeaux to win and over 2.5 goals in the Portland-Philadelphia game in the MLS. On the right side, we've got some short, snappy trends that we kind of like. These are the strongest trends across all the leagues we cover. If you look at the top 120 of Man City's last 24 games have had at least 3 goals. Covering the lower leagues in England at the bottom here, we can see that Bury have lost doubles in 12 of the last 20 games, but the Swindon half-time, full-time price is as big as 4.5. On the right side, we've done some player analysis using our player software, drill down into any key individuals that might be missing and how the teams have done previously without them. Anything else on Formlabs? We also have a very extensive strategies page where you can see any user guides for any of the products we offer, also any long-term strategies that we publish each week, and some feature-length articles on the games today. If we look at the Chelsea one, you can see this was included in our e-letter as well today. A lot of information there with our expert team of analysts that have written up what they think is going to happen in the game based on a statistical preview with a recommendation at the bottom, which is over 2.5 goals in this match. Some other things that we'll look at this week. This week we looked at the Bundesliga without Bayern Munich, and we will also cover other sports including golf, rugby, cycling and tennis. I think at this point it's probably us saying if anyone has any questions, now's the time to ask. We know that this webinar didn't record last time, but based on the practice that we've had, it should record this time. So we're gonna publish this webinar, and it'll be open for anyone to view. And if they've got any questions, then please don't hesitate to email in and ask. You can get us anytime on support@footballformlabs.com. We're also on Twitter @footballformlab and on Facebook @footballformlabs. We currently have a 15% discount for anyone looking to join Formlabs for either Formlab Black or Formlab Max. If you use the promo code FFL Facebook, you'll get a 15% discount. There's a 2-week free trial. If you don't like the software, you can cancel at any time. You won't be charged. And we offer discounts for taking out our software rather than a month, over a quarter or an annual basis. There's nothing else for me. I think there's going to be a lot of goals in the game today. I'm a little bit annoyed that Firmino isn't playing. Have a good weekend betting. Thanks for joining.